thank you for the opportunity to present the work and share the knowledge. I have to say that such meetings like this is really important to have support from the industry, because without this, our field of technology cannot be applied. We will not be able to do our work without the help from the industry. And I have this small exposure to say that I consulted for Philips and also Venus Tech which is a power company. So as an individual, when we choose a tools to work on, we need to understand the strengths and the weaknesses of all the tools that we're using. No such one thing is perfect, and to be able to use the combination of all the technologies together is great. And you see throughout the tools we talk today, echocardiography is readily available, it's easy to use, and it's really good in terms of providing instant anatomic and functional information. There's hemodynamic information that came from echocardiography, and it has a really good temporal resolution as well as spatial resolution. The problem with echo is that it doesn't have, it's limited to an acoustic window, and therefore CT, MRI, and also other modalities fill in the advantages of that. And but it's important to understand the weakness and the drawback. So throughout the theme of my talk, you will see the demonstrating mainly focusing on CT and MRI, into aiding the understanding of the diagnosis and also the follow-up of patients, but also an important aspect of imaging that we use for is not just to get quicker pictures, we need to cater it towards the intervention and surgery so that it helps the members to get better results. And for me, MRI is great for diagnostic purposes, follow-up, long-term follow-up, because it's reproducible, it's replicatable, it's widely published in the guidelines, and you can refer to those to initiate intervention and treatment. Whereas CT is better to look at fine structures like smaller vessels, chronic artery disease, structures where there's a lot of metal artifacts, and subsequently CT is much better to use for interventional planning because of the high resolution. And now with modern technology, we don't have to sacrifice patients so much in terms of radiation use. You hear from the engineer today that Philips has developed this spectral CT scanner, which is first in many other competitors, that offers nice pictures as well as minimizing radiation use in these patients. MRI is in some ways catching up with that, but there's always room to for both modalities to coexist. So I will not choose one thing over the other. First I'm going to talk about MRI. The day when I was starting in training, the MRI scanner is very clunky, very big, very restricted, and the bore is very small. And with the recent development, now we have larger bore, 60 centimeter, that can easily fit a rather large person, a round person as well. But now the availability of the bore is 70 centimeters. It gives us a lot more advantages. And with this, you can see that we can use in larger patients as well as make it less claustrophobic for our patients who are small, particularly children. Have any of you been in the MRI scanner, you feel that it's like going through a tunnel, it's actually quite scary. With larger bore, we can use the scanner for particularly in pregnant ladies. We look to learn about fetal abnormalities in the brain, the other body system, and the heart, and so on. So it's a big advantage to have the bore is larger and more accommodating. And it's important to think about when you develop your MR system and when you bring it to your hospitals, it's not the work of a lot from the clinician or one or two individuals, but it's important to invest in the development, the training of the technologists or the radiographers in your units, because they are the people who actually ensure that the quality of the images are best and serve the purposes of this. And the SEMR, the Society for Vascular Resonance Imaging, so they draft guidelines for technologists, doctors, and so on. They developed a scale from basic to specialized curriculum for such patients. That's skill training. So we come from basic things, learning about basic MRI, to the advanced one to perform MRI under general anesthesia, post-processing pediatric MRI under genital. So those things are a bit more complicated and requires more understanding. And this is just a general recommendation. These slides will be available for you, so don't worry about go through every single bit of it. But basically, we're working our way up from learning the basics to more complicated criteria as to what you'll be using the skills for, and there's a list on there includes some of the complex anatomy that exists, and the ability to interpret some of these procedures. It's important to know all this and help your team train up this way, because this is a slow learning process, and it's worth investing. And then going all the way to the specialist MRI, including pediatric and some complex heart disease and so on. As you know, the acquisition techniques is important because with MRI, once the patient's off the table, there's no other ways for you to work on how to improve this. So the panel on the left is show the pictures where the patient who's not cooperating, holding their breath very well at all, and secondly that there's a lot of motion artifacts, and it's kind of a vague idea, but the quality of that is actually not any superior than echocardiogram, and it's actually subject the patient to stress and so on. So, but there are ways to work around that, and these things are really important. In fact, the industry have listened to us and have accommodated to do further developments on these sequences that will make things a lot easier. And then, of course, the other two frames I showed you are of the same patient, but we apply on the right hand side, the left one and the one on the far right are of the same patient. So we developed the techniques, and this is when I was doing research. So the MRI is acquired in some ways that the machine needs to create a signal, detect the signal, and then put it all together. But there are ways to take shortcuts and accelerate that procedure. So in that picture on the right hand side, you see the same patient who's still breathing freely, and it's all done during the breathing. But also in the picture in the middle is offered a different patient that you can actually increase acceleration to shorten the way the pictures are acquired, and this can be done the whole heart or the short axis that is acquired within just a single breath hold, or even just before the breath hold is finished, it's all done. So these things are important when you try to develop in terms of if you have this MRI scan takes a lot of time, and sometimes it's important to have these techniques built into your system so that the time can be shortened, and also it's more acceptable for the patients as well, and the economy and efficiency. And the things, the acceleration techniques is one of the features that the companies are keep improving and developing, and you can actually vary this within your scanner sequences, and you know how to modify some of these techniques. And these are just different scales. So again, once you increase the acceleration factors, it's often there are other things that you need to sacrifice. And these are just the range from the standard baseline images to some various acceleration techniques. And this is the one here on the right side. We just showed this one is the fastest one. You can actually see it really diagnostic. It has a few artifacts that are going in. So it just depends on what you're aiming for. Then you can work out the sequence. But then again, this one will probably take a few minutes to acquire. Also records compared to this one is done within maybe even a minute. And based on those simple data, we can work out the heart function, the volume, and the mass. This is kind of standard bread and butter type of information available in all of the imaging reports. And MRI has its great advantage. I know this is sometimes you just take it for granted, but usually this is it's readily reproducible, it can be replicated, anybody can look at this and perform in similar ways, and then the numbers should be consistent as much as possible. And we use this to drive guidelines. We use this to drive decision-making process, and just to do this, to put the patient through a procedure or not. But just further than that, there's more to the typical short acting stats you can look at. The imaging processing softwares has evolved so that you can actually look at some of the additional features. We can build like a 3D, 4D mapping system, and we can look at the strain rates and with tissue tracking and work out a ventricular function and use this to correlate with some of the other push-pull findings that we need to look at. Tissue characterization is one of the strengths of MRI, and this can be done in majority of the time just a single shot technique. So here you've got the black blood and the white blood T2 laser imaging, and also the T1 imaging equals contrast. So these ones to show is used so you can see really crisply, really clear. This is of a normal patient to investigate and collect inflammation of your heart wall. And this one is this patient following administration of contrast. It's got a massive clot in the LV apex, and this patient has developed following myocardial infarction. So in some way, it's and this is very clear in MRI and in cases where diagnostic challenges and other things. This is what you would show very clear MRI. This slide just shows another use of tissue characterization in MRI to demonstrate very nicely the chronology of the myocardial infarction process. So this patient here, this is the early stage of infarction. MRI shows the whiteness of the myocardium. So this sequence here targets at picking up inflammation. When your tissue is inflamed, it holds in more water. And then this sequence picks up, so there's an increased brightness, indicating there's more inflammation around that area. That occurs in early parts of infarction within a few hours. And then when the infarction, when the process has occurred, you will have some scarring developed. That's the whiteness here. And then some of the areas of the myocardium become affected later on that becomes darker during this period here. And a few months afterwards, you can see that there's a process happening. So then, this inflammation no longer exists, but then there's post-perfusion, the treatment of the patient, this area has, in some ways, some of it has recovered, where certain parts of it hasn't become late scarring process happening. You can see the process of this, and treatments are decided based on the viability in certain parts of the myocardium that drive further therapy, whether the patient be more aggressively treated in various ways. And with this, with MRI, there's a limitation in the prescribed imaging plane. So you will see this patient is well demonstrated have an infarction of the LAD territory that covers the lateral part and distal parts of the heart. Perfusion imaging is another thing that actually, yes, it's hard to do. It's hard for the patient to tolerate as well because how it's given, the contrast, the patient needs longer breath holds, and sometimes the contrast will, and also the stress agent will make the patient feel quite unwell. And this is nice demonstrated by a patient with a significant microvascular obstruction. So with this patient, often when you do coronary artery imaging, in gross scales you will not see any major changes, but MRI picks up these signs. This is the deepest layer of the heart, the endocardium, the subendocardial heart is not perfusing very well. This patient will also with vascular abnormalities, diabetes, hypertension, and so on. And we developed other things to help with some of the subjectivity of this. These pictures is just a classic textbook one, but most of the time it's not that easy to find out. And then we developed some AI algorithm to look at how these things can be fixed a little bit more reliably, because in the human eye, sometimes the signal intensity can be quite subjective. But when we give these signals some labels to look at the intensity, in fact it could actually identify significant abnormalities. For example, this is the conventional, this patient has Kawasaki disease. They have no affected coronary artery abnormalities. The patient have pretty much normal leg gap. There's no scarring, there's no leg gap enhancements, and the signal is uniformly normal. Whereas this patient here has got a giant aneurysm developed after Kawasaki disease, also have calcification in the fusiform aneurysm here. Actually looks bigger than in the pulmonary artery. And then there's reduction of flow in certain areas, particularly in left aspect here, and then this is picked up quite readily later, was in this black and white picture here, and we'll probably pass this as normal. So, and then AI just gradually, we train the model just to work on this and to improve the diagnostic accuracy. MRI is great for looking at how heart disease. It's not just the pure kind of the black and white pictures. We see the images that you see. You can see that there's regurgitation jets going into these bacteria from the aortic acquisition area. We can look at the flow and then measure the regurgitation fraction. But the senior images can be as useful as echocardiogram to look at some anatomic abnormalities. This patient has got the prolapse of the tricuspid valve, and sometimes it's quite hard for echo. Basically, someone who's not so experienced with that will speak is effective, and MRI, everything is very clear as to what it's going to be. Yeah, and this patient here has got the hole in the mitral valve. And then you can actually quantify such abnormalities by looking at the calculation, and there's different texts to look at this, different methods, and MRI can actually accurately, or as close as possible to accuracy, quantify some of these, and we use this to delineate the threshold for treatment. And we can use different internal validation methods from the measurement to double check what we're quoting. And these things eliminate all the subjective bias during the procedures. More bit about flow. This is the work that my colleagues have done in the earlier days. This is the heart disease patient. The patient's got crisscross hearts and also transposed great arteries. And this patient in some way developed cyanosis, but then there was a question between mixing versus shunting. So whether the patient had reduced blood supply or because there was so much of the streaming coming from the systemic venous return that gets sent out to the aorta and not mixing well. So we use the use of body flow. We can actually quantify some of this in greater details, and you can work out how much of this actually, whether the patient needs a further cystotomy or a shunt to send more blood, to improve more blood to the coronary circulation. So it's early days, almost 10 years ago now. We're glad to know that it doesn't take a day or two to get the answer straight away. In fact, with the post-processing, the sequences that the companies have picked up along, we can have these answers instantly. And then we learn even more mechanism pathologies. This patient has got aortopathy and the substrates of the tricuspid valve who have a dilated descending aorta. And this demonstrates very clearly the reason why it's dilated. Maybe then it could be because of the jet washing effect of the stenotic jet. So the heart is pumping and just pushing the different stresses into different parts of the wall of the aorta, leading onto abnormalities of dilatation, or sometimes it could just be because of the tissue makeup of that those patients. And using body flow, we can then work out on the different models and understanding the mechanism of abnormalities in terms of creating stress into different parts of the heart wall, and explaining to why certain patients with particular coarctation will develop hypertension after the treatment. And we can use watery stress and kinetic energy to work out some of these abnormalities. Some of these have been validated, and we're still not using them as widely as possible, I think, because of the availability of such sequence and software to post-process them. Another advantage of MRI is that actually it picks up really nice things on cardiomyopathy, and a lot of the guidelines for treatment are now delineated based on bacteria. We don't need to argue that in this patient who have hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, we don't just see a thick wall and a borderline. We can see the atrial displacement of the papillary muscles, we can see asymmetric thickness, we can measure platelet enhancement, through scarring in different parts. And we use this as a system to weigh and treat on the ICD and so on. This patient has got non-compaction cardiomyopathy affecting both left and the right ventricle. It's very clear. Let's pick this up. We can look at clots formation of this as well. But then some of the more clever bits that I actually don't work so much on this one now is the inflammatory aspects of the cardiomyopathy. That in the normal days, if you just look at the echocardiogram, these patients just have a bit of reduction in systolic function, but sometimes we don't know as to they're not. It could be measured by naked eye, but with MRI, because these numbers are so robustly validated, and you can do them in series, so we know when the numbers start to deteriorate, and we can look at the degree of scarring, and then prescribe treatment and respond and monitor the treatment response based on this. It's another few slides and looking at the range of the diseases that MRI can easily pick up. This patient got pericarditis. You can see the sequences on the top here, just and the weight on T2, so looking at the amount of water there is. So you see the significant inflammation on the wall there, and then on the bottom line here, this major enhancement. So these pericardiums become thicker and become fibrous as well. And this is the bottom slide, bottom row show the pictures in extensive ways to look at pericardial fusion. But not only that, we just quantify the areas or the amount of fusion. We can actually do dynamic tests and looking at the dynamic effects as to decide as to when the drain and the tapping should take place, or should this be managed conservatively. So let's just a quick summary. So MRI is good at looking at all the diagnostic aspects and monitoring aspects for heart disease, focus on various areas of the heart disease, myocardium, and also just to look at other aspects that affect the leading onto the disease process, using a lot of the clever sequences that the engineers and companies have been developing. This is another aspect I'd like to show. It is not something that we do a lot of. It's in fact one of the few centers in the world, and I was to do this. I was quite lucky to be part of this at the beginning. So this is an cardiac intervention using no radiation at all. The patient is under, this is a hybrid MRI lab, so you have a catheter bed, and also in transit with the MRI bed. The patient has a catheter with vascular access blood on one side and slide into the MRI scanner with steroid fields is get applied on, and we use the catheter here. So this is the patient getting transferred into the MRI bed. This. So the rest of this catheterization is exactly the same as before. But this is a beautiful thing developed by Phillips engineer. We worked with him at the time. So we use MRI sequence. So this is not, it doesn't involve any radiation at all. So we use 3D imaging plane. Also, this is the MVR, the most brain reconstruction. You can render this in volume metrics as well. And then you can see this white dot here is the balloon catheter that tracks along the patient's anatomy. So this is in a way we use this DI, you can see where the catheter is in the body. And then this case was done as a diagnostic purpose, but there have been intervention was carried out as well. Just bear in mind that all the kits around here are developed to work with this, so there's not a lot of metal involved in this. Yes, everything is MRI friendly in this environment. So the operator is in the room, the screen, there's a screen here in the operation room that you can see, but people from outside also driving this, and we'll just keep going. Just talk about that's it. From the outside, from the control room side, I think we're just working on how to get the better view, better pictures, and vary some of the MRI parameters to make it work. This is the screen, this is the screen where I sat and describe some imaging plane, basically it's just like the guy with X-ray arms equivalent without using any X-ray. Another advancement in MRI is using this to diagnose cardiac lethal problems, and with this, this is work from another team in my group at the time. So we're looking at diagnosing these abnormalities, and the techniques is essentially, thankfully, we don't have to do this now because there's better ways to go around this. But the MRI machine just takes a lot of the pictures in various views, and then we use the post-processing algorithm to put them all together into a stack, and then from there onwards we work on the anatomic structures. This is equivalent to working on a 3D SSFP data, 3D data set. These are kind of the pictures you get afterwards. It helps us look at some of the anatomic analyses. We can segment this into these are, you can look at this patient got a duct here, and then this one is potential coarctation. And now this group has to progress further and do even more advanced imaging CNEs and body flow on the Jesus as well. This is just one of the early work, so we segment this and diagnose various problems like vascular ring coarctation, some abnormalities like anomalous venous drainage and so on. This is the antenatal images, and this is the postnatal images. So this one is played to show that the airway was compressed in this area. The patient underwent surgery to remove the vascular ring components of it. Again, the next part I'm going to just focus on cardiac CT, and I think most of it has been covered by the engineer earlier. We are at a very exciting time of cardiac CT development. So we're starting out with very early days of a simple CT machine at the time, and now advancing to different acquisition technique. We're using helical as part of CT, and then multi-detector CT become available, and then more acceptable multi-detector scanner, multi-sources, and now what we have is spectral detectors for CTs, which is yes, it's increasingly being adopted more and more across many units across the world. And the advantage is that the safe radiation gives you beautiful pictures, really more information than you need, and some of the information that we don't know as to what it means as yet at the moment. So it's really important to apply some research into it. This was what you've seen from the slides earlier. Based on the spectral imaging modalities, we can look at more things that we could have before, like looking at a higher definition from the stent abnormalities, looking at various artifacts on calcium. So some of the past we used to be confused between what's calcium and what's stent, and now we can answer those questions better that way, and therefore we can plan intervention thereafter. There are works going around about myocardial perfusion based on spectral CT, and this is work in progress for research. I don't think it's that much longer until we can use this on clinical scale. You can see that this substitutes all the work that we used to do in MRI, and get really far more information. And it's now increasingly more acceptable because of the low radiation exposure. Then the technology just keep advancing more and more, and I think some of this will learn more on the as time goes by, and more adoption of this technique. We have less radiation and less contrast usage for better quality imaging. So that's the important message. But the more exciting things that I think we structural interventionists and surgeons are more interested in is the quality of images that spectral CT scanning can provide. Like, it eliminates a lot of the subjective bias into what echo pictures you can use, whoever has taken the echo pictures, are they good enough or not. But now with the CT, you can actually see that's very clear. This patient got bicuspid valve, aortic valve, and gas fusion between these two leaflets. So this is the right, so this is the left. There's also chronic abnormalities in this patient as well. The left system followed by the pulmonary course. That's a big information line. So this one is to demonstrate the anatomy very clearly. This one is to demonstrate the pathology of the patient that got severe cirrhosis, bicuspid valve, calcification, and we won't go into much into what we're going to do with it, but you can appreciate that it's basically a no-brainer as to what's wrong with his heart. And this is not done with the spectral CT, but with the technology. As you see, you can actually see the whole heart beating in front of you in high definition, high resolution. You just drop into it, in and out, looking at different parts of the heart. The mitral valve is just about that part of the valve. You can see the apparatus, the chordates, the appositions, the leaflets. You don't really see this patient go to the left. Between the posterior part, with the aortic valve, pulmonary valve, and so on. I think I made this picture back in 2016, maybe. Yeah. So things have moved a long way since as well. But the most important thing is how we're going to use data to plan our intervention and procedures. And all of this is work towards improving safety of the procedure, choosing the right approach for the patients in terms of the procedures, the steps of the procedures to correct the device, avoid complication, and also we can predict some of the outcomes as well. So CT, because of its high quality of definition, also some of this is tissue characterization. As you see there, you can see nice demonstration of the conduit stenosis in this patient. It's got biology being operated on, but with an arbitrary conduit, and now that's become calcified. The CT data sets are used for procedure planning. In this case, I planned for the wiring approach, capacity delivery approach for the left and the right pulmonary artery. We can look at the valve formation or their formation into the anatomy. We can then choose the sizing of the valve correctly, as well as the landing zone. We can then monitor the function of the valve weakness thereafter as well. And all of these can only be achieved with CT in a moment. And this is not, this is a brief slide because you can actually, this is the point to make this slide is that with good data set you can actually specify the risks in these patients and put them into high risk, really high risk or low risk at all, and you can advise your team to work towards this. And it is something that I developed with the team for the valve company to help the procedure scaled up across the world so that when units are trying to adopt such procedure, they know which patients that they should pick on rather than going for all the difficult ones and endure all the failures. Yes, so with any intervention procedure, it's important to understand some of the key abnormalities and some of the pitfalls to look at. So with CT, it's really good to look at this patient, for example, has got we're planning for a perfectly discovery valve in this patient with the wire approach. And sometimes it's either basically to the left or the right anatomy. In the past, we used to go with the left, but now we choose to go by the right. Clearly, you can see that because of the complexity of the distal PA bifurcation fold that potentially can make the valve flipped or jumped, and then it affects the position of the landing zone. The CT is very clear that you can see that this patient's got an aneurysm of sinus of Valsalva, then potentially you can get a valve implanted to the migraine road and cause problems there. MRI in some way is aiding the understanding as to what the mechanism for dilatation of certain parts, and therefore you should be planned the valve down even further. One should aim for the valve to sit more distally because of the washing effects of this stool, which has been chronic, and then make this very more aneurysmal and not as a and with CT, we can see beyond a clinical note in the story. Many patients have operation in different places, in many places, and when we receive them, we might understand as to so for this, you can then see that the for congenital staff, you will see that the patient has got the scarring from underneath the valve structure. Was this patient got a transannular patch? So the patch cuts into the valve annulus. This one, the patch extends much further, and this one has an extensive replacement with a patch that has tendency to become calcified. And understanding all of these fine details will help you with the plan much better. And I always refer into different modalities, and in some ways, the good old X-ray is great to look at because it actually tells you the full story without just focusing on just a simple part. This patient, when you look at this, it's got a CRTD, previous wires, also different defibrillator leads in, and so taking vascular access in this patient, which is a established procedure, is a nightmare, as well as when you put big sheets in the size of this finger, sometimes it can displace or it is some cause of perforation. It's important to refer to your basic tools as well. Yes, so this is probably towards the end of the talk. It's important to understand what you're choosing, being CT or MRI, fusion, catheter, and at the moment we spoil for choices, and it's important to pick and choose what you think is best for the patient, and understand the anatomy, the modality as well, and that will help with the success of the procedure. And there's more work going on. We've got virtual reality, we've got computer model to look at different things, and these are something I'm working on at the moment to improve the safety and also prevent failures. But thank you very much.
Bác sĩ Kiều, không biết chúng ta có cái câu hỏi nào cho